Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again, and I'm with my friend Page Maxwell, and we're going to be talking about astrology and its validity and veracity, and we talk about reasons why some of us will see it as that way, and understand why you have some cynics out there and skeptics that really still may not believe in astrology's existence. And the first thing I want to get at, like with this, is the fact that it's important to keep in mind that just because something's not tangible or it's unseen doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I mean, it's kind of like this. I'm going to give you a basic example. Back in the VHS days, it's like if I had walked by, say I walked by a, one of those old, VHS videotapes back in the prehensile days, I call, and I walked by it, and something happened where the memory, and well, not memory, but the whatever the footage on it, whatever had all became erased, and I didn't know really, well, I wasn't aware of how it happened, but it did happen. There was still something that caused it. Now, you might see later on there was some magnet or something or whatever it was that caused it to be erased. But at the time, I may not have known. And I think, like, when you look at astrology, like for me with the planets, and they could have, I believe they do have an effect on us. But the thing is, it's not something that we can readily see, and I think that's why you have a lot of the skepticism out there connected with it. But at the same time, I do realize that there are people out there that they want the more tangible evidence, and that's why you're gonna have people out there that will go down through the rest of life. They will never they'll never believe it, and and that's something where things can be difficult for people to really ever convince those people that that astrology does exist. I think some of it too has to do with, in some instances, that people don't want to necessarily accept something like astrology as having similar comparable power to what their belief would be. I mean, you have like the religion, and I think that's what it part of the reason why some people won't accept astrology is because they don't want necessarily something, maybe not surpass what their belief is, but something that may be equal to it in terms of it, something that could have an impact on others' lives.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too. And I think that's why you have people that have just decidedly to say, okay, it doesn't exist, or they'll rebuke it without really understanding the full gamut of the nature of the actual subject. So
I think the example of the magnets, I forgot those messed up VHS tapes back in the day.
Right.
Yeah, you couldn't have a magnet.
Or something.
But I mean, that's a perfect example of some unseen force, and that definitely exists, but you can't be seen. But I mean, there's countless kind of examples. We don't really understand. Nobody really understands fully how magnets work and why they work, which is there's still kind of a miracle. And gravity and overall is still something people are figuring out, and it's a giant unseen force. Radio waves, really any kind of like ultraviolet light, there are tons of a large amount of the light spectrum people can't see. So there's plenty of things that are beyond our perception and understanding that have an influence on us and very much exist despite our lack of awareness of them some of the time.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I've spoken about this in previous videos, and I wanted to put it in here for those that may not have seen it. I think what happens too is that you'll have a lot of people that'll try to rebuke or debunk astrology based on just very limited information. It's almost like they're just trying to refute it just because they don't want to necessarily accept it. And I got to put, put Bill Nye, in this example, because he made like some video that was about a minute long, and he in his mind he debunked astrology in that 1 minute video. And the video was really based on just the sun. It was based on the sun sign position, but what he was trying to show, that okay, like in his case, he's a sun in Sagittarius, but the sun was in the constellation of Scorpio when he was born, which would be accurate. But what it is Bill Nye had the signs, and he had the basically the signs being misconstrued, for constellations, because the Western astrology uses signs in the moving zodiac. The Vedic astrology is what uses the constellations. So he was actually talking about his Vedic position anyway, which Vedic astrology does exist, of course. And then you have, but what he wasn't factoring in is that the Western astrology is based on the precession of the equinoxes. It's based on the seasons. So based on the seasons and through Western astrology, his sun sign in Sagittarius is actually accurate. And then you had Carl Sagan was another person that was really he was very adamant regarding his belief in that astrology doesn't exist. And he had stated something about, well, it's something about being interesting, or something that you have two people born on the same day, or may have the same chart or whatever, and they're going in two different directions. But what it is you could have something in one, even with people that have an identical chart. That doesn't mean they're going to go in the same direction in their life, because the placements in astrology chart can mean so many things. It's like with me, I have my North Node in Pisces in the 11th house, right? And I think a lot of that, my North Node in astrology is connected with our mission, our destiny, where our purpose is, what we're trying to develop in the latter part of our life. And with me, a lot of this has to do with me doing, I believe, the astrology videos, because Pisces is connected with film and video. 11th house is astrology. And another way of looking at it is that Pisces is also associated with the metaphysical, which includes astrology. 11th house is our future, our goals and aspirations, and even groups. And just me interacting on occasion with the groups, like astrology groups, say on Facebook, that's where a lot of my destiny may have been tied into. But somebody else that has the North Node in Pisces in the 11th house, it may manifest differently. Another person may do something like, hey, say they're going to altruistically help their friends, or just relaxing with friends. It could be something even more basic for someone else. So that's where we have to understand that astrology shouldn't be debunked based on very superficial knowledge.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
And I think it makes sense that scientists are going to be aren't going to be too friendly with it, because it doesn't really work with scientific understanding, because science seems to want to prove things without a doubt, and needs to find a causal relationship to things. And if it doesn't have a causal relationship, it needs to be certain about it. But I think it's to say that astrology is a pseudoscience isn't really accurate, because astrology has been around much longer than science, so it's just incompatible with it, I think. But on the other hand, I think it's compatible with belief systems like religions and stuff, because if you believe in an ultimate creator, I think it makes sense that the ultimate creator put those stars there for some sort of reason. And people, I think, lean towards astrology because it gives them a sort of set of meaning, some sort of meaning and understanding of their own purpose and reason for, some sort of explanation for who they are and why they're here, which is, I think, similar to the reasoning, the purpose of a lot of religions. So I think it's compatible with some forms of information and not compatible with others, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely a very valid point, I would say, on it. And like, you talk about the mission, like, or well, not mission, but purpose for others. And like, it goes back to like, what I'm saying before about the North Node in one's chart, and even the sun can be strongly tied in astrologically to one's purpose, and some people may look for that in their chart and home in on that in terms of finding some kind of purpose in their life. And of course there's other things in the chart which would be too many to get into, where there's a lot of other things to look at in one's chart where they could show certain like life direction where they may go in. But what I wanted to get at, because I thought was interesting, what you stated to me before we did the video about the planets and how they have, certain connections, like certain things like, Mercury with the messenger and, of the gods, and connected with the, with the, referring to it as something connected with the god,
and the metal of Mercury, and so I mean, there's just a lot of parallels between symbols and roles of that are projected onto these planetary entities and energies, in terms of associations and in terms of like symbolism, like I said. So I mean, yeah, like Mercury being closest to the sun, being closest to the giver of the provider of light and life in our solar system, it makes sense that Mercury is interpreted as a messenger, because it has the quickest year cycle. It goes around the sun the fastest. It's closest to the source, so it makes sense that Mercury would be the one to receive the messages because it's closest to the source, and I find that interesting. And I think Venus has some associations with romance, if I'm not, which I can't really speak on about that one too much, or as much. And then Mars being associated with like war and stuff, I think that can line up with the fact that it's close to us, and potentially some of the history of Mars and whatnot in regards to war and our plan to colonize it. That might be involved with its associations. But I think there's a lot of parallels and stuff in different forms of studies. And whether it be alchemy or astrology or
And the thing about Mercury was an interesting point that you made about it being a very relatively close proximity to the sun, and the fact that there's such a sun in astrology is about our focus and attention, and Mercury is about our communication and thinking. There's a lot of energy that goes into that during our many people's lives. And in many instances, people actually have the sun conjunct Mercury in their natal chart, which puts even more of an intensified focus on communication for those individuals, and what makes it very interesting. And Mercury also, most of though I'm really speaking a lot about this, is the fact that it does govern Gemini and Virgo, and again, Mercury being the messenger of the gods. And with Mercury ruling Gemini, I mean, with all that communication, the fact that Gemini just loves to assimilate and disseminate information, Virgo is more about the analytical side of Mercury, more about the analysis, but they can be pretty good talkers too. But Gemini is even more known for really being able to talk and keep conversations going almost indefinitely. So it's interesting that you have that correlation as well.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, people, I'm glad for you to join us on this, and that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. And until next time, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.
Have a good one.